Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am doing another original tag. I can't find tags on the things that I enjoy, so instead I've just given up and started making my own. If you would like to do these, you are always welcome. I don't tag anybody because, well, one, I always just forget and basically that's all there is to it. But if you would like to do it, you are more than welcome to consider yourself tagged. Anyway, let's get into what this tag actually is. I love American Girl. American Girl are about 18-inch high dolls, and they have many of them. They occur, I guess. The dolls have stories, each of them, and they're set in specific time periods and they are different people. For example, I have technically 9 dolls. 6 of them are mine and were bought for me, and then 3 of them were bought for my sister because we both really liked them when we were younger, but I'm more sentimental than my sister, and so she doesn't want them anymore, which means that she's giving them to me, and that's very exciting. Where I'm gonna put them, I don't know, but I will find a place because that's just what I do. Anyway, like I said, I have 9 of these dolls, and they're all set during different historical eras. The latest doll that I had bought for me is Kirsten, who is set in 1854. My sister has had, now mine, Julie, who is set in 1974, which my mom just thinks is hilarious because she remembers having a lot of the things that Julie has. It's great. Anyway, the basis of this tag is that you take a doll, or if you have multiples, you look at all of them and the time periods they were in. You can either find a book based in that same time period or the same location. I decided that doing that would be a little bit simpler because trying to find something in that specific time period can be a little bit difficult, so it's broader and provides more of a basis for books if you expand the scope to places as well. That said, and I think this will make a little bit more sense as I go through, let's get started. So the first one is Kaya. She is from 1764. She is one of the Nez Perce tribes, and I mean, 1764 is a great time for anybody, but specifically the tribes because they're getting kicked out and poisoned by all sorts of fun stuff. At any rate, Kaya survives the book because it's very exciting, and I have all of her stuff. She's got dogs. It's great. I said that a lot. Moving on. I don't have a book specifically set in 1764, at least not that I can find or remember. So instead I went with place, and that is High Plains Tango by Robert James Waller. This book takes place out on the Sioux reservations, and there's a whole bunch of people dying, and there's an accordion on the wind. It sounded really interesting and I got it at a bag sale, so I couldn't say no. But the reason I chose this one for Kaya is because her tribe was a plains tribe to a certain extent. They did live in mountains seasonally, but this is the closest I could find that I haven't read yet, because the other book that was an option was The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and I didn't like that book very much, so I decided to go with one that maybe I would like more. But that is why I went with this book, because it is set in the same general vicinity as Kaya's books. The next doll is technically 2 dolls, because some of these are companions. So I got Felicity Merriman first, and then I got her friend Elizabeth Cole. Yes, Elizabeth Cole. And these 2 friends bond during the Revolutionary War, or specifically 1774. For this, I went with The Traitor's Wife by Alison Pataki. This is about Benedict Arnold's wife. I don't know if it's accepted that basically it's her fault he went over to the Brits or not, but this book very much so makes it sound like it is entirely the wife's fault and that Benedict Arnold would not have betrayed the country if he had not married her. Whether that's true or not, I neither know nor care. It's in the past. He did it. Moving on. So, same time, same place, the East Coast, and that's why I went with this one. The next one is one that I got as a graduation gift from one of my cousins who also loves American Girl, and that is Caroline, who takes place in 1812. For this, I went with Bloody Jack, which I have been talking about a fair bit recently because I just finished this series. This follows a girl named Mary who changes her name to Jack when she joins the Navy as a boy and runs away from being an orphan on the mean streets of London in the early 1800s. Specifically, I think it starts in about 1807, 1806, and goes to about 1810. It is a series of 12 books, and they talk about pressing men into the British Navy, which is one of the things that caused the War of 1812. Americans got real touchy about the British people coming over and stealing men off of our ships to take onto their ships. Don't do that, because it starts wars. Next I have Josefina from 1824. Josefina lives in New Mexico, and she and her family are Mexican, because 1824 we haven't fought the Spanish government or the Mexican government for that land yet, therefore it is still part of Mexico. I am fudging a little bit on this one because I don't have a book specifically set in New Mexico as we know it, so I just went with a book set in Mexico, because again, New Mexico was part of Mexico at the time. And for that I went with Aztec by Gary Jennings. This is a book about the Aztecs at the time of Cortez's arrival when he slaughters them all. It's very dark. It's also a huge book, but I am both excited and trepidatious about this one just because I want it to be as good as I think it is, and I'm scared that it won't be. Like I said, chose this one because of the place of it as opposed to the time. Next is Kirsten. Oh, I'm getting ink all over. Anyway, next is Kirsten from 1854. Kirsten is a Swedish-Norwegian. She's a Scandinavian immigrant who comes over to the States with her parents in 1854, and for that I went with North Dakota Weddings by Elizabeth Goddard. Kirsten and her family settle in Minnesota, North Dakota area, which is where a lot of Scandinavians settled because the soil is good. It reminded them very much so of their homeland as well, which, having lived in Minnesota and North Dakota now and having been over to Norway and Sweden, I definitely see the similarities. Anyway, this book is a Christian fiction. It's a collection of 3 stories about women who find their soulmate and get married. It's not my favorite collection of short stories, but I think I got it for $1, and it was a quick, easy read, so I just read it in a night, and it was fun enough. I have Samantha and Nellie, who are the other pair up that I have, and they are from 1901. So for that I went with Lux by Anna Godbertson, because Samantha and Nellie takes place in New York, both in New York City and upstate, I think. My New York geography is not great, but Lux is technically in the late 1800s, so timing-wise it does not work. However, it is also set in New York, because this is high society, stakes and romance and intrigue, and I highly enjoyed this series and just hauled this book actually. So that is why I chose this one, but also high society and Samantha is rich. It helps. And then my last book is for Julie, who is from 1974, as I mentioned, and for that one I went with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Julie, who has a friend whose doll I don't have, Ivy, but Samantha and Ivy live out in San Francisco. Ivy lives in Chinatown. I don't have anything from the 1970s specifically because if you know me, I don't really do anything past about 1970. Instead, I went with California, and for that I went with The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Everybody and their mother has read this, as they should, because it's amazing. 5 stars. But this one is set, at least in part, in California. So I had to fudge a little bit because I also don't have a lot set in California, but this is the one I went with because it's the closest I had. This is my American Girl tag. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, there's many other dolls out there than besides the 9 that I mentioned, 10 that I mentioned with Ivy. Hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.